In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be reviewing the match against Cagliari, previewing the upcoming Champions League fixture against PSV, and the Serie A fixture against SPAL, this week's Moratti, Moggi and Frog, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on sempreinter.com.
Attenzione, se ne va largo dall'estero il tiro, la spinta corta, finito, e gol!
Attenzione, Ronaldo salta anche Marchegiani e mette dentro il 3-0.
Andiamo, il principe entra in area, è solo, il tiro, e gol!
Con Ronaldo a battere questo calcio di punizione molto lungo per Zamorano che gira bene al centro, attenzione, il destro, violentissimo, e lo spettacolare gol da parte di Zanetti.
La prima squadra che vince qua è la nostra Inter, l'Inter vince, e dillo, campioni d'Europa, campioni d'Europa, i più forti siamo noi. Nulla è possibile.
Bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I am your host Nima Rutsari, wishing you welcome and I hope you had a nice weekend. I know I've had a good weekend. Inter won. But before we get into all that, let me welcome our guests and panelists. Starting with the founder of the Gentleman Ultra, Mr. Richard Hall. Welcome.
How you doing, guys? You okay? Good to see you.
Well, I'm good. I'm not as good as you. And on that note, I think we should, just on behalf of everyone, congratulations on becoming a father. If it's a girl, I think the name Javiera is a lovely name. Just saying.
Javier seems great. That's fine. I just need to get that past the wife.
Yeah,
I'm sure an Englishman walking around with names like Julio Cesar or Javier Zanetti will absolutely be fine with my wife, but thank you.
Well, I'm just putting it out there. And we're also joined by our good friend Alex Donno, the host of the Alex Donno Show on 560 WKAM in Miami, Florida. Welcome back, Alex.
Thank you so much. And I will note that since my first appearance on Studio Inter has not lost a single game. So you can consider me the good luck charm, and when they do lose again, you may not hear from me for a few weeks.
That's actually, I was going to bring that up. After the last time you came on, this winning streak may never end, so that's why we thought we'll bring you back on again. So yeah, you're the reason for our winning. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. And joining us all the way from Italy, our good friend, he's the match commentator for Il Nero e Lazzurro, Mr. Fulvio Santucci.
Hi Nima, hello everyone. It's great to be back, especially to be back after 3-1 games in a row.
Yes, indeed. And we also have a special guest. He's the global head of features for all 37 editions of Goal.com, Mr. Carlo Garganese. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's great to be back, Nima. I'm happy to be representing Inter on this podcast.
Oh dear. Right, let's get to it. I've asked you on, Carlo, because you've since the beginning of the season started pretty awkwardly or pretty awfully for Inter. You've been criticizing Spalletti, and you placed the blame firmly at Spalletti's door. And I was kind of keen to hear what your thoughts are now that it's turned. Is it because of Spalletti or is it despite of Spalletti? Go for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's because of Spalletti. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't watch the full game against Cagliari. I saw the highlights, so I can't really speak about that game. But I thought that against Tottenham for 85 minutes, I thought Inter were dreadful, to be perfectly honest. And then obviously had an amazing recovery at the end. Showed great heart, but in terms of the actual football for the first 85 minutes, wasn't impressed at all. Against Samp, it was quite a tight game, but that's a difficult match away from home. In Genoa. Against Fiorentina, again, I didn't think Inter had a particularly great game. I thought Inter were a little bit lucky to get the win in that match, especially when it was 1-1. It looked like Fiorentina were a team that were going to go on and actually win that match. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that Inter, despite this kind of 4-match consecutive wins they've had, I wouldn't say that Inter have really been incredible. But, I think there are qualities there. I think Inter did have a good transfer market, and I think you guys are are solid at the back. I don't think you're going to concede that many goals. The spine of your team is a lot stronger this year. You've got 3 quality centre backs. So even when you're not playing well, as you haven't particularly been in these 4 games, or the first 3 of the 4 games, I think you've still got the qualities there to kind of get results, to hang in there when you're not playing well. So that maybe doesn't answer your question, but as you know, I think at the start of the season, I think Spalletti made a lot of mistakes with his team selection and some of his tactics. But starting to pick up now. So let's see where it goes from here.
Well, Richard, you want a question? Want to ask Carlo?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good point what you just made there, because I mean, for my points, when especially like you say in those earlier games, Sampdoria especially, I was very critical on Football Italia for this and divided a little bit of opinion, because I was probably maybe a bit too harsh, because I found that Spalletti's tactics, exactly as you say, potentially been a bit turgid in some respects, not brave enough either. And I think last season he had he didn't have as many options as he does now. You mentioned the spine of the team, and I think it's spot on. For me, the game against Cagliari was a big improvement, and I also think the game against Fiorentina was a very, very tough team. They are difficult to beat, and there are signs of progression, even though it's slow. I think the question would be, in some respects, for me, is that, and so maybe to put this out to everyone, is that what I think has been refreshing in some respects is Spalletti has maybe had to use more depth in the team, maybe had to really search and test those players who maybe we've been sometimes critical over the last 2 seasons, and really test some of the new ones. But I suppose the question would be, do you think that even with maybe this mild progression that's slowly, I think you alluded to, there is character there, do you think the Champions League possibly will hamper Inter in the long term, even though it's where the fans want them to be?
Well, I guess it depends if Inter qualify. I mean, it's a very, very tough group, and there's still a long, long way to go. So, I mean, obviously the 2-1 win, it's a great start. And, if Inter can win on Wednesday, with Tottenham playing Barca, I mean, could be in a very, very strong position to go through. So if Inter gets to the knockout stages, then obviously it's going to stretch the squad a lot more. But I mean, I think the depth of the squad is obviously much stronger now. There's a lot of options at centre back, but maybe further up the field, not so many options in attack. I mean, there's Icardi or Lautaro Martinez in attack. So I mean, there's 2 good options there, but it is gonna stretch the squad. I mean, what I would say of Inter is they are a much tougher team this year, from set pieces, good in the air, and over the course of a long season, I think that is important. So there's definitely progression. I don't think Inter will have any problems with getting in the top 4, but I think you're expecting more from Inter this season than simply the top 4.
Fulvio?
Hello, Carlo. And I
Hello.
would like to ask you. Hello. I would like to ask you something about Radja Nainggolan. I understood that you have been able to watch the last 3 games of Inter, and you surely noticed that Luciano Spalletti never benched Nainggolan. Instead, he benched Icardi, Brozovic for preparation of the Champions League match. But Nainggolan was there, and yes, it seems that Radja Nainggolan is crucial in the thoughts of Spalletti for the Inter season. So I would like to understand from you if you see the same way, if you see this in the same way. So if you think that Radja Nainggolan is crucial for this squad, or if can Luciano Spalletti get rid of him just for 1 or 2 matches, and he's gonna change something. And we know that Nainggolan is not in his best shape. He practically and basically skipped the preseason. But still, I would like to ask you see an Inter without Radja Nainggolan at the moment.
I don't think Nainggolan's been brilliant so far this season. I don't think he's been bad either. I think he's probably been, 6.5 out of 10 by Italian ratings, that is. So, I mean, he's been good. I don't think he's at the level that he was 1.5, 2, 3 4 years ago when I was an absolutely huge fan. I mean, I've been a fan of him since before he went to Cagliari. I remember being told by a colleague of mine, Chris Vokes, who watched him. He was a scout for an English club at the time, Chris, and he actually scouted him and recommended him to a Premier League side actually when he was playing for, I think, Piacenza at the time. So I've known about him for a long time, and I think he was at Cagliari and then at Roma. He was absolutely incredible. But I think last season there was a noticeable decline. I'm not going to say a terminal decline, but there was a definite dip in his performances last season. He scored those 2 goals in the semi-final against Liverpool, which too little, too late. But I think generally his performance, even in that game, in that tie, wasn't particularly good, even though he scored the goals. And I think over the course of the season, I think that's why Roma were prepared to let him go. That they saw him as someone that's kind of a little bit past his best. Having said that, though, Spalletti knows Nainggolan better than anyone and knows how to get the best out of Nainggolan. And I think even when he's, again, like I was saying before, even when he's not at his best and at his peak fitness, he's just a winner mentally, not just physically, but mentally. He's so strong, and you just know that when he's on the pitch, that you see him even before the game, and you're lined up next to Nainggolan in the tunnel, waiting to go out. He gives you a real advantage, psychological. So I do think he is very important still, and for this Inter team. But yeah, I think he will need his rest, because I don't think physically I think he has dipped a little bit physically, and they don't want to burn him out. They want him to be, firing into, later on in the season. So yeah, I think they do need to rest him a little bit, pick their games. When Inter are playing against the smaller sides, give him a rest, and I think that will benefit Inter in the long run. But obviously with these big matches, it's difficult. I mean, I think after the international break, Inter have got a really tough period. I think they've got the derby and then Barca, I think, straight after, and then is it Lazio?
Yeah, it is Lazio.
Yeah, so I mean it's a tough run, and you think, right, any of those 3 games, Nainggolan has to play, doesn't he? So it's difficult.
Right, Alex.
Yeah, this builds a little bit on the Nainggolan question, but I wanted you to take a little bit of a bigger picture look on the new signings of Inter. You mentioned a solid summer transfer window. I think at this point we've seen all 7 of Inter's new signings have at least an opportunity to have an impact early on this season. But I would say so far, to me, Asamoah has probably been the most consistent of the 7, but we're only 7 rounds into the season. By the time the season is over, which one of Inter's 7 new players do you think we'll be talking about as the man who had the biggest impact over the entire season?
Oh, tough one. I think with Asamoah, he's a guarantee. I have no doubts about that. I think for years he's been so underrated. I mean, I remember when Juve were playing against Tottenham last season, and it's one thing that Juventus have always actually struggled at quite a lot in Europe, is when there's a real full-on press, that Juve can struggle to get out of their own half, because players just can't break the press. And I remember seeing Asamoah when he came on at Wembley, and he was so cool in the ball. He never lost the ball. He always used it. He always knew where he was going, and that's been so underrated. And you've seen that at Inter as well. It's very small detail, but it makes such a difference. He never gives the ball away. Always uses it well, simply but effectively. I've got no doubts about him. I would play him left back all the time. It's been Inter's weak link for a number of years now, and he's just a guarantee at left back. I would play him there. So I think he'll be talked about at the end of the season. The others, Politano, I'm not sure about him, to be honest with you. I think he can do a job against the smaller teams. I don't know whether he's going to have it against the real top teams. That doesn't mean he can't be a useful player in a rotational system, but I'm not sure, to be honest with him. I think he's a little bit. I worry whether he's a little bit of a one-trick pony. If I was a defender marking him, I think I would know what he's going to do every single game. He's kind of drop his shoulder and then come inside. So I'm not sure about him. I'm not saying he'll be a bad signing, but I don't know if Inter really want to get to the very, very top. I don't think he's going to cut it. Keita Balde's been disappointing so far. I've been very, very disappointed in him. Even at Monaco, he never really did it, to be honest with you. But he's got bags of talent. Who else there? Lautaro Martinez, a goal colleague of mine, Daniel Edwards, who kind of covers our South American football. he's actually a racing fan. I was call him racing. He's a racing fan, and I just gave up on that one. I've actually got their shirt. They've got an amazing shirt. But yeah, he was a huge fan. I asked him about him when Inter signed, and he actually compared him to Aguero. Not necessarily in kind of style of play, although he's a little bit similar to Aguero. But he thought that he does have the potential to be kind of the most kind of naturally talented Argentine since Aguero, and which is a big statement. So I've got high hopes for him. Obviously, he's been injured, and he's not at full fitness right now. But there's clearly a big talent there. So he's one that maybe given a bit of time to settle and everything, he could be a big sensation. So we'll have to see with him. It's difficult to predict. De Vrij, I think is an excellent player. He's an excellent defender, and there's not many. We're in an era now where there's not many great defenders, sadly. But he's kind of one of the better centre backs I think in Europe. A little bit slow, so with him and Skriniar playing together, I'm not sure. Sometimes against certain opponents, that could be something to watch out for. But yeah, I think he'll be an excellent sign-in. Have I missed anyone?
No, I think you got it because you already spoke about Nainggolan, so I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I think to sum up, I think Inter did have a very, very good transfer market. The only thing I think Inter are missing is a little bit of creativity in the final third from the centre of the pitch. I think we saw that against Tottenham for the first kind of 8%. Yeah. That's what I think Inter are lacking.
Well, I know you got to go, and I thank you so much for coming on. But before we go, I want to ask you quickly. You do this to everyone who comes on for the first time this season. From 6 to 1, starting with the sixth position to first position. Give me your Serie A predictions.
Oh gosh, right, okay. Well, I think Juve first. Second, I'm going to go Inter second.
Okay.
I'm going to go Inter second. I think it'll be Inter or Napoli for second, but I'll go with Inter. Napoli third. Fourth is tough. I'll go Roma. I'll go Roma fourth. And fifth and sixth. Gosh, who we got? We've got Lazio, we've got Milan. Fiorentina are pretty good this season as well. That's a tough one. I'll go fifth Fiorentina, sixth Milan.
And seventh Lazio then, I guess.
Yeah, we'll go with that. But it's difficult. I'm terrible with these kind of predictions.
So who do you think will become the Capocannoniere? Do you think Icardi, Ronaldo, or is it even the Genoa sensation Piontek?
I think it'll be difficult for Piontek to keep this up for the whole season. I'm going to go with Ronaldo because he always goes through a scoring streak where he just goes on a streak where he'll score 3 hat-tricks in a row. And I can see that happening. So I'm going to go with Ronaldo, but I don't think Icardi will be far behind once he gets going.
Fair enough. Well, it was always a pleasure having you on. If people want to follow you on Twitter, where can they find you? And have you got anything else coming up on goal? Because you guys usually have something special coming up around this time.
Yes, you can find me on goal, usually ranting at Carlo Garganese. Yeah, so you can find me on there. And in terms of what we got coming up, we have our annual Goal 50, which is something we've been doing for 11 years now, and it picks we select the 50 best players of the year. And yeah, that's happening in November. November the 13th, I think, is the date when we reveal the 50. And there is an Inter player in the list this year, I can tell you. So I can't reveal who, but there is an Inter player in the list.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Well, it was great having you on, Carlo, as always. Thanks for coming on, and I hope you're right, that your Serie A prediction is right. That would be awesome if Inter finished second this year.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I think I say it every single time I come on here, I think Italian football needs a strong Inter and it needs a strong Milan. And the sooner that both of those two teams, are strong again, then the sooner that Italian football can really become, get closer to what it was in the in the 90s and the beginning of the century.
Hear, hear.
100%.
Hear, hear. Take care, Carlo. It's nice
Okay, thank you guys. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks,
and,
Carlo.
have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, ciao.
Cheers.
Right, let's move on to that. Let's discuss that Cagliari game. Excuse me. I'm kind of keen to hear your guys' thoughts on that. I thought it was a pretty decent first half. I was very disappointed in by Inter's second half, and I'm still in that situation. Last week I said I wanted to see a consistent performance over 90 minutes, and we still have not been able to see that. The second half was dreadful, in my opinion. I think the fact that Cagliari was just not good enough, and Spalletti made the changes he should have done to win that game, and finally, it worked. But Inter left it late and would have been punished if the quality was better. That's my assessment. Do you agree with that, Alex?
Yeah, I certainly was very frustrated for long droughts in the second half. It conjures up images of a lot of the slow times of Inter last year. I do, though, take some comfort in the fact that, in recent weeks, when they do have blackouts, when they do have struggles like they had in that second half, they're still finding a way to grind out results. At this point, I think there are very few, if any, free victories, even at home in Serie A. A lot of these games can be tough. A lot of these games can be frustrating. I do take some positives from the moments of quality I did see on the field. I thought that Dalbert was incredible. For me, he was the man of the match. I thought that his setup on the Lautaro goal and a lot of the things that he did coming up on the left side were great. I thought that seeing Lautaro Martinez really play and thrive early, he was extremely gassed late in the second half. But I think it's understandable why he doesn't have his full fitness about him just yet. And I was very happy to see Politano score his first goal in the Inter shirt. Not a great first touch, but he made up for it, more than made up for it with the finish with the left foot on the volley. So I certainly will not apologize for any victory. But do I come away from that match thinking that, Inter looks like the anti-Juve or anything like that? I think we need to, like you said, Nima, we need to see not necessarily 90 perfect minutes, but 90 minutes of consistent quality before I can really start pumping my chest and saying that Inter is here.
Nice. Interesting. Speaking of Dalbert, Spalletti after the game did a classic Spalletti in comparing his cross to that of a certain Roberto Carlos. I'm glad he's not exaggerating, I feel now. I'm curious to hear what you think about that, Fulvio. Were you reminded of the days of Roberto Carlos when you saw Dalbert's cross?
Yeah, of course I remember that. But okay, I have to say that the full story here is that practically Spalletti said that during the training, Dalbert can kick the ball like Roberto Carlos. And it's you don't believe me? You can ask everyone into Pinetina that it's like that. So. Not a real comparison, but still something for the headline. But still, yes. I was very satisfied with Dalbert's game, especially because he was confident, consistent for 90 minutes, and that was his limit. Because I think he's a quality player, and I think that his problem is mental. I think that he should just play confident and don't be how can I say. Don't be put out of the game in his first mistake, because typically he did something like that, but against Cagliari was consistent. And speaking about the game, guys, I won't be so tough with Inter. Also because we're talking about a game in which we practically benched a lot of players. And you can say that you have no leaders on the field, because Skriniar was benched, Asamoah was benched, Icardi was benched. So practically all the men that, in my opinion, can give some mental strength to the team, except Nainggolan, was practically benched. So I was actually satisfied for what the substitutes did into the game. And I think that not only Dalbert, but also I think that we should mention Borja Valero, which played really well. Yeah, consistent. So I'm pretty satisfied. You're right. At some point, Inter gave Cagliari the control of the game, and that's something that you should avoid. But on the other side, Inter risked practically nothing, right? No risk. So yes, you can say the opponent was not good enough. But the positive side is that if you think about Inter substitutes 1 year ago, well, the situation is improved right now, because now you can have reliable substitutes. Lautaro Martinez was really good, reliable. Dalbert was reliable. Borja Valero was reliable. So I think that the general situation is improved, and I think that you cannot test Inter from the match of Saturday against Cagliari, because practically that was the Inter too. Well, that was the reserve squad of Inter, not Inter. So I'm pretty satisfied about the match, if I have to be honest, because I think that the same match 1 year ago, with so much substitutes into the field, could end differently. That's my sensation.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that, Richard.
Yeah, I back a lot of that, to be honest, because I was really deeply disappointed against Sampdoria. Really, really annoyed. I thought the performance overall was really, really poor, and from that, you question a lot of things. I think going into Fiorentina, the marginal changes, marginal gains, if you would, and it got better. But against Calgary, a lot of the points that you guys just mentioned then were really important for me as well. I agree, Nima, that it wasn't, I don't think Inter at the moment aren't where we need to be as a team to have that sort of dominating 90-minute performance, because I don't think we really know completely how to. I don't think Spalletti even knows completely how that system is working. I think it's still a little bit experimental. I hate the word transition, but there is a little bit of that. Listen, the strength in depth, and we touched on this earlier on with the earlier questions we had, and the fact that Dalbert was probably, in my opinion, man of the match. Maybe we'll come to this later, but man of the match for me, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, the assist for Martinez's goal. Listen, you know what? I don't think that comparison to Roberto Carlos was that bad, because at the end of the day, we always watch highlight reels of Roberto Carlos, and some of the free kicks were good, some of the crosses were good. There's just as many bad. But there was, but in all fairness, Dalbert had an excellent game, and we criticised him enough. And when he played well, he played well. The confidence point that Fulvio made was perfect, because he is a confidence player. I thought Candreva for me was interesting, because I think he's actually played better he's played quite well in some poor Inter performances. I didn't think he played particularly well in this one. It was a bit frustrating in that respect, because I felt he was coming back a little bit. But like the guys say, Politano for me, I actually think he's growing. I really do. I think he's growing massively in confidence, not just with that finish, but in the fact of how he takes players on, how he wants to run against, the defenders a little bit more. We haven't had that. We need more of that. You can't just rely on Perisic for that when he's in the mood for doing it. Martinez up front. I mean, it was interesting before listening to his comments. I interviewed an Argentinian football journalist, Sam Kelly, who was talking about the fact that Martinez, like Icardi, has been schooled by Diego Milito, and there's a lot of symmetry there. There's a lot of similarities. And, this guy looks like he's going to be able to find the goal. So, and finally, the last person I was really impressed with was Borja Valero, because he did play deeper, and I like the fact that he decided to. I thought Gagliardini had a pretty poor game, actually, but he did at some points cover Valero, and what he allowed him to do was just take the ball and spread the play a little bit, and it just gave it more of a flow. And you're right, Nima, it wasn't a full 90 minutes where it flowed, but when it flowed, they moved the ball quicker, they were willing to take players on, and overall, it just had a bit of a faster pace, it had more purpose, and I was pleased with this. Now, how that transcends into the Champions League, I don't know, but from that game in itself, that's the first time I saw. Well, considering how I felt against Sampdoria, for me personally, this is progress.
That's interesting. For me, I was really impressed with Borja Valero, and watching him and Brozovic play together in that deep midfield was really interesting, and I thought it looked really, really good. But before we go on, we as always, SempreInter.com's readers vote on the man of the match, and this is the first time that we've had have had such a close such a close result as to who actually is the man of the match. The winner was Matteo Politano with 30.8% of the vote, and Lautaro Martinez came in second with 30.2% of the vote. And the new Roberto Carlos of the age, Enrique Dalbert, came in third with 21.4% of the vote. Let's move on to, we've got bigger and better things coming up, which could essentially, if Inter were to have 6 points from 2 games in the Champions League, are in excellent position to go through, going into the double encounter against Barcelona. PSV Eindhoven away at the Philipsstadion in Eindhoven. And this is one of those games where I remember when we were talking about the Champions League group, the one with Porto and Schalke, Fulvio, you said that that's one of those classic groups where Inter would finish last with 0 points.
Yeah, right.
This game has got that written all over it for me. PSV, I know, Dutch football isn't what it used to be at the club level, but this game scares me more than maybe a Barcelona does, because I know what to expect when I'm going against Barcelona. What are your thoughts going into this, Fulvio?
Well, you can be right about that, but I think that what should be highlighted here is the fact that if PSV has only one chance to remain into this competition, is through its own game, right? Because you cannot expect something really impressive on the away game, but into their own stadium, I think they could be dangerous. They could be dangerous, and besides, they have interesting players, especially in the wings. Lozano, we all know from the World Cup, but also Bergwijn on the other side of the is a very interesting player. So quality players, and as I said, we should be worried about the fact that PSV is very good into their own stadium. So yes, I practically agree with you. Probably this match scares me most than the Barcelona match, because but just for the fact that this match is all the pressure is on Inter, because Inter can win. Is able to win, while if you go in Barcelona into the no count, you practically have nothing to lose. And that's practically the logic, right? Inter is typically struggles more into the game that can win, instead of the matches in which have nothing to lose, and nobody will point a finger against you if you lost into the Barcelona stadium. That's practically it.
That's very much true. Richard, do Inter still? I mean, obviously, winning against Tottenham gave Inter an excellent start. But how will that win against Tottenham be completely nullified if Inter were to not take all 3 points against PSV?
Not sure about nullified. I think it was crucial. I think it shows how crucial that win against Tottenham was in the final gasps of the game. It's a huge boost. I think that win against Tottenham shouldn't be understated as well, because we all remember the previous Tottenham games, and I think that has been something that sort of was very symbolic in Inter's not demise, but the way they were going in, the way Inter see Tottenham is probably what I should say. And in the Champions League being back now, that was huge. And if they'd have lost that game, and I think PSV is, like you guys have said, is a very difficult game, very difficult going away, irrespective of Barcelona, because you have to take that out, the Barcelona PSV game, you have to take that to one side. I mean, if we take it just from the start of September, PSV Eindhoven have won 6-1 against Willem II. They won 7-0 against Den Haag. They won 3-0, and this is the measure against Ajax. That's the measure. The rest of them. In the cup, they won 4-0 against Excelsior, and then they won 2-0 against NEC. Also, this is not on the bad side. They can score goals, and so they can't say unlikely. That crowd's good. Going to Holland and the 4 major teams, if you want, is always difficult to go. So Inter can win here. There's no question about it. Inter have got more quality than PSV, but the problem is they have to be 100%, and they have to go in. And that, for me, is why, when we were talking about Cagliari and the question I had earlier on in the podcast about this idea, the strength and depth of Inter, about the fact that Lautaro Martinez, the fact that Valero, even though Gagliardini came on and played crap after, was very poor, after Brozovic went off, the fact that these players can do that, that's essential now. Because now we've got to take a team to Eindhoven and play a very good team. And so for me, I'm still confident that Inter can do it. But they can't go to this game thinking that, we've taken Spurs out, therefore this is going to be an easy run-of-the-mill game. But I think, you mentioned before, just in the last comment, that Inter sometimes, if they can get themselves to the mindset this is a big game, I think they'll be fine.
That's fair enough. Alex, I'm interested to hear for me, this is 3 points. I'm just going to go out there and put it. Yes, PSV are a good team, but Inter are better than PSV. And although they have Lozano, who Inter have been linked to and who I think is an excellent winger, I still think that, and as Richard pointed out, these guys can score goals. But with all due respect to NIC Breda and Willem II, this is Inter, and Inter should do better than this. What do you expect going into it?
Everyone's making great points. It should be 3 points, but I thought Fulvio said it best that sometimes if Inter goes in thinking this should be 3 points, sometimes that's when Pazze Inter shows up, and that's when you see the most inconsistency. I think that something that's so crucial heading into this match is, we were talking about this with the Cagliari breakdown, that you've been able to, over the weekend, rest some of your most important players. You can't tell me Icardi's legs have not needed a rest. He's not been in full fitness all season long. He must be benefiting from a little bit of extra time. Asamoah has been a workhorse. He deserved to get some rest over the weekend. If we can get the best possible, freshest legs from Inter's most important players, then it's really hard to imagine anything but 3 points in this match. And I'll go back to something that Carlo was saying in the interview portion, and again, this goes back to the pressure that Inter may feel on their shoulders, but if they can come away with 3 points in this match and 6 points to start out their Champions League resume for this season, they put themselves in wonderful position to advance, still with plenty of work to do, of course, but everyone talking about this specific Champions League group, Group B, as being a group of death, and Inter being caught 4 was the kiss of death. They can put themselves, gentlemen, in wonderful position to advance, getting a victory on the road in Eindhoven on Wednesday. And certainly, I would expect that if we're talking about getting nothing, not a draw, not a victory, not 1 point, not 3, then the conversation the next time we speak will probably have more to do with what Inter did wrong, how Inter shot themselves in the foot, more so than how PSV did everything possible to win that game. I think it's going to take some negative performances by Inter not to come away with everything this week.
Well,
so Nima,
go for it.
Sorry, Nima, if I just can sum up something, I would like to give you some numbers about this PSV Eindhoven into the Philips Stadium. Because we should not underestimate the fact that PSV made great games into the stadium, because practically they are not losing into their own stadium since July 2017. So we're talking about more than 1 year ago. Against the Croatian side, Osijek was Europa League qualification. And after that, they put together 21 games. And 3 draw games, and one of these draw games was the last one of the Dutch league of the last year, and they were already awarded champion. So practically it was an irrelevant match. So we're talking about 23 matches without any loss into their own stadium. Yes, it's Dutch league, so probably not the best league in the world, but still we're talking about a team in which it's difficult to win against this team into the Philips Stadium.
Well, on that note, then, I'll ask you to predict the game, Fulvio, and give me some scorers. Who will score? If anyone will score.
Well, instead of a prediction, I can give you a hope. And
Scaramanzia,
yeah, right. You're right. Yes, and my hope is 1-3. Of course, 3 for Inter, 1 for PSV Eindhoven. I think Icardi is gonna score in this game. Probably is gonna make a brace, I think. And the other scorer, I think that could come from the defense, could be De Vrij or could be Skriniar, one of these two.
Same question to you, Richard.
I want to be positive. Really
Yeah,
want to
no,
be
no,
positive.
fuck that. Be honest.
I've just got this. I don't want to because I'm in a really good place with Inter right now. So that's a weird thing. But every time I'm in a really good place with Inter, this happens. So listen, my initial thought before this podcast, and as being a little bit blasé, was that Inter would win 2-0. That was just in my head. But just looking into, because we all, did a little bit of research, believe it or not, before this podcast. And I know it's a Dutch league, but I've got a weird feeling that Inter could go there and draw 1-1, which wouldn't be the worst. Because, you win your home games. And, if Inter can do that, I still think they can do something against that Tottenham side away as well. So, I'm going to go 1-1. I think Icardi's now, he's scored in the Champions League. I think this will be his Champions League. And there's something that probably isn't going to happen. But has anyone noticed that Trent Sainsbury's playing for the PSV?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm only joking. He won't do it.
Will was talking about this, that it would probably be him scoring a goal against us. So yeah.
Okay, so my rubbish 1-1's on.
Okay, fair enough. Alex?
I'm going 2-1 Inter. I'm actually going for an Icardi brace also. And I think, once again, in typical Inter fashion over the last few weeks, I think that the game-winning goal, I think it will be tied 1-1 at about the 87th, 88th minute. And I see Radja Nainggolan assisting Icardi, setting him up for the game winner. So, once again, my heart rate will be through the roof. But I think we will be talking about 3 points.
Pretty detailed.
Yeah, I'm thinking it will be. I'm thinking 1-0 for Inter, and it won't be it will be one of those games where PSV will really take the game to Inter, but Inter, I think, will manage to not concede, and I think Kandreva will score a goal just to piss off all the haters. Right. On Sunday before the international break, it's SPAL away, and speaking of difficult away games, this game last season was one of those games that really stayed with me the furthest, because I thought Inter looked so poor, and SPAL are a difficult team to face. So I'm hoping we get a draw. I'll be happy with the draw. I'm going to be honest, because I think SPAL can cause all teams all kinds of troubles at their stadium. What do you think, Fulvio?
Basically, you're right. It's probably the worst moment to pick SPAL into the Mazda Stadium. So yes, it's something that we should worry about. Not agree with you when you say that you could settle up with a draw. I think that yes, SPAL is organized and have a very good start. As we're recording, they are drawing into Ferraris of Genova against Sampdoria 1-1. So tough. It's a tough pitch. So they're consistent. They're a very good team. But still, I think that we can manage to beat them because we have a lot more quality, and I think that's it's doable. It's doable for us. We should understand how many energies we're gonna waste into the Champions League match day, and after that we can have a big picture of the game against SPAL. But still, I think that on the paper, at least, it's a victory is doable for Inter.
So, what is your hope? Since you don't do predictions, what is your hope against SPAL?
Well, I think it will be a game very stuck. Since at some point, Inter will be able to come out from the mud. And it's something that could end 1-0 or 2-0 or something like that. So I think that, here I'm saying 0 because I completely rely to our defense. I see that we are growing, defensively speaking. The fry is very consistent. So I think that this could make a difference at some point. And when the SPAL, because I suppose the SPAL will make a lot of energy into the first half. When SPAL start to get tired, that's the moment of the break for Inter, and hopefully we're gonna score into the second half, and yes, and we're gonna win the game. I think this is my best hope for the game, and I could expect something like that actually.
Richard, I'm interested to hear you here.
Yeah, so I mean, SPAL this season been impressive. They're sort of almost turning into everyone's second team. I mean, the fact that they got players like Battaglia from Atalanta and sort of regenerated them himself have been brilliant this season, and they've been enjoyable to watch. Remember that game you talked about as well last season, and that was poor. And so it doesn't, give you the greatest hopes. But the one thing Inter have been pretty good this season on his set pieces, and I'm absolutely still not convinced of Alfred Gomes in goal for SPAL. De Frel has just literally scored as we're talking now. It's 2-1 to Sampdoria, and again, I'd say that Gomes should have taken that first shot. Look, I think with Inter at the moment, this is a game where similar to the approach to PSV, they've got to take this seriously. They've got to. I think it would be really scrappy. I don't think this is going to be a fun game to watch. I can see it being 1-0. Take a pick of the score. I'd actually go from someone from a set piece. Doesn't matter who it is. I could see something like that with this. It's. I don't think it's going to be very open and free flowing. I think Inter's got to be really careful about. It's not about the counter attack at all. I think with Inter, if they can play on the front foot, I think it'll be a difficult game because SPAL will put players behind the ball. The problem is with Inter sometimes in these sort of games, they don't dictate the tempo and they let other teams dictate the tempo. That's when they could be in trouble for me with SPAL, because if you let SPAL play, they will play. So hopefully, narrow win, 1-0.
Right. Alex, same question.
I go back and forth in this one a lot. I think it's going to be low scoring. I'm having a hard time deciding between a 1-1 draw or a 1-0 victory. I don't think Inter dropped this game. I'm going to go with a 1-0 victory. And I think probably going to be a set-piece goal. And maybe D'Ambrosio finds the back of the net in some occasion. I think it's going to be a workmanlike effort in a tough place to play. I think Inter comes away in a close, gritty performance with a little bit of a Champions League hangover, kind of affecting the energy and affecting the pace.
That's fair enough. For me, I'm listening to what you guys say. If I'm thinking Milan Skriniar, if he can score one of those goals he did against Crotone, like that kind of an ugly goal, that kind of. Last season away, like that kind of scruffy win, I'll take it, because then it's the international break, and God knows our players need to rest, especially Perisic, who looks like he's been on like we said last week, he's been on a 3-day drinking binge. He looks exhausted. The guy looks like he can barely stand. I think he needs to rest. There's a lot of players I want to rest. I'm gonna stick my neck out there and say 1-0 again, Skriniar on a set piece. Right, let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, criticize, and rip the piss out of someone or something in the world of football, starting with something positive, this week's Moratti, which will be presented by Mr. Richard Hall.
Oh my God, he is beautiful! He is beautiful, yeah!
Okay, there's loads to be positive about, really. I've changed it a little bit just before the end, and it's actually not to do with Inter. Originally, I was going to go for Dalbert because I just really enjoyed that performance and the way that I feel. I like when players get sort of vindicated and can start doing well. I was also going to talk about a strength in depth, but we've done that as well. And sometimes when I go on this pod, I always talk about sort of regeneration of Italian football ever since 2006. Now it's getting back on its feet and everything else. It might not mean as much to you guys, but I saw Lazio just obviously have re-signed Ciro Immobile and Milinkovic-Savic to 2023. That might not mean a massive amount. Milinkovic-Savic could still go. But I just like the fact that the Italian clubs are still trying to keep the talent in the league. I think that this transfer window was excellent when we've seen the likes of Higuain staying in the league. It might not always be to our taste. Cristiano Ronaldo might be a pain for all Inter fans and everything else, but I just enjoy the fact that Italian football is getting just a little bit back. Not just back, really back. And the Champions League performance is, which we've seen obviously with Inter being back, as well as all the rest of the clubs. And it's nice to see. It's good to see the league going from strength to strength. I like the fact that it's not always looking like it's going to be a feeder league to the Premier League or likewise, as the Bundesliga sort of turned out to be. And so I just think that's a really nice touch. I mean, like I said, we could have talked about Inter, could have talked about loads of other things there because there's so many positive things. But I just like the fact that two big players, and I really enjoyed the Rome derby on the weekend, and two big players like that being signed up. And I just hope that's something that doesn't just resonate at Lazio, who obviously, there's a lot of similarities there between Inter and Lazio, but also the fact that I hope that it resonates between all the clubs in Italy and that they continue to hold on, or at least try their best to hold on to their top stars.
Right, that's a good one. Let's move on to slightly, somewhat more comical part of this segment. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. Alex Donno.
I go with the groundskeeper at Mapai Stadium. Very frustrating. I'm watching Sassuolo Milan on Sunday, and the pitch was perfect. And why is that significant to any Inter fan, any Interista? You're watching match day one, first match of the season. Inter fell 1-0 to Sassuolo. Of course, I can't entirely blame the pitch on that, but that pitch, match day one, was like the Sahara Desert. It was a potato field. So you would think, well, the pitch is only going to get worse as the season progresses. Yet somehow they had some of the most perfect grass for Sassuolo Milan that I have ever seen. I'm wondering how they let the groundskeeper get away with those sort of shenanigans to start a season. I mean, not to mention the actual Sassuolo players don't show up against Milan the way that they do every match against Inter. So there's some frustration there. But how that groundskeeping at Mapai Stadium can be so inconsistent, it's baffling to me.
Yeah,
Good one.
Good one, yeah, very good one. And also the fact that
That's brilliant.
Sassuolo is owned by a self-proclaimed Milan fan.
Yes.
Just makes that all that better. Right, let's move on to the negative part of the show. This week's Moggi, which will be presented by Mr. Fulvio Santucci.
So, something weird is happening in Serie A this season. You know that video assistant referee, which I'll call it Italian way VAR from now on, has been tested along the last season, and from several point of views was successful. But in this season, something went wrong, because VAR practically disappeared in the first 3 match days, and nobody explained anything about it. Then finally, VAR reappeared during Sampdoria Inter, and by that match started being used more frequently, like the last season. Then something happened during Inter-Fiorentina, and here's when our today's story was born. You know the facts. A penalty has been awarded to Inter with VAR support, as Fiorentina's Vitor Hugo touched the ball with his hands into the box, so everything clear. But then a lot of protests came up. Fiorentina's coach Stefano Pioli, Fiorentina's club manager Giancarlo Antonioni, also the mayor of Florence showed themselves up on TV and claimed to be very disappointed, asking for respect and quality, and so on and so forth. The next day, the Sport National newspaper Corriere dello Sport reported into his headline, the VAR punished Fiorentina as a penalty was awarded to Inter due to Vitor Hugo touching his hand with a fingertip. This was clearly provocative, since a fingertip ball never existed. This is called handball, right? Well, Fiorentina kept complaining until Sunday's match against Atalanta, when in a stuck game, suddenly a penalty was awarded to Federico Chiesa, who clearly dived into the box. Then it was a clear deception of the referee, but the penalty was awarded. The VAR did not reverse referee's decision, and Fiorentina won the game. Atalanta's coach Gasperini argued a lot with Pioli, and Pioli denied the dive, despite it was crystal clear on cameras. Today's comment into the same newspaper was penalty is not so clear, but even also is not clear. But even also dive is not clear. Actually, Chiesa was wise to change his running direction, and we had a similar situation in 2007. No, really, I'm really quoting. It's like 11 years ago. I think we can all agree this is a desperate attempt to rescue the referee from his responsibility. And so the newspaper said we should blame the VAR once again for the lack of support to the referee. You can say, well, it's fair enough. It's fair enough if only VAR had the intelligence to decide himself instead of being driven by a referee, right? But if we put this on the perspective of the Italian culture, what happened is pretty clear. Fiorentina was refunded after complaining, and was refunded by damaging Atalanta in what we can call compensation culture. And this is practically a culture in which a mistake against the team is fixed up by making another mistake as a benefit for the same team. And everybody seems to be fine with that, even though VAR was introduced, especially to fight this kind of culture and prevent a mistake instead of being forced to double it. So everybody knows that, but nobody's talking about that. Fiorentina was clearly compensated, and that's something that was likely decided since the beginning of the match against Atalanta. So did any newspaper face the issue from this perspective? Absolutely not. Instead, all fingers were pointed up against VAR not making its job. In the meantime, Federico Chiesa got away with murder and was honored by local media for his behavior. The local media said he was wise, he changed running direction, it was something that should be awarded, and yes, was practically honored for his behavior. Would you call it our Moggi of the week? I would definitely do, guys.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well,
100%.
Well done. Well done. A little applause here. No, well done. Absolutely. It's insane. But just building on that, I think it's really interesting because for me, I think it's two aspects of it. One is this compensation culture, which is Italian, which you explained so well. But the other thing is also that, if the VAR is used properly, then this wouldn't have happened at all. I mean, against Milan, against Sassuolo Milan yesterday, we saw that again. The VAR was used when it's not supposed to, when it doesn't need to be used, and then when it's supposed to be used, it's not used. And this is ridiculous. This chaos. The VAR was brought in to reduce the chaos, and it was working last season. It was
working last season. It really was.
It really was, and now it's just everything has been completely confused again. Well, that's all we have time for this week. I'd like to thank Carlo Garganese for joining us, and I'd also like to thank Fulvio. Good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you, Nima, and see you next time.
And it was great to have you on again as well, Alex.
Thank you so much. Always happy to come aboard.
And let's hope that this time you're on means that we win another 4 games. And also the gentleman ultra himself.
Thank you very much, guys. Loved it all. And like Chiesa, I've fallen for you all.
Excellent. With that, I'd like to wish everyone a good week. 6 points until next time. And sempre e solo Forza Inter.